Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Aman Jaspal. I'm a senior licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand and a MARA advisor for Australia. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a real special honor to have you with us. We have been following the great work that you're doing in helping people get the right advice and land the dream jobs, which is so crucial for a lot of people. And the kind of work you've done, the techniques, the skills that you're imparting people, it's really amazing. So, welcome to the conversation today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've also been watching you and how you have been contributing to the immigration community. So thank you for that. For that, it is a great privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's start from the beginning. Say, we a lot of people do not know that you're originally from South Africa. You were raised in a farm there. What was it like? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes, I have been in New Zealand for nearly 24 years now, but I was raised on a farm in South Africa, and we had a wonderful life on a farm in South Africa. You can just imagine being growing up on a farm in the middle of Africa and the carefree life that we had. It was fantastic. And we had this amazing carefree life in Africa, and we had wonderful parents, lots of space, and lots of opportunities. However, this was during the apartheid years that we grew up, and therefore we were somewhat sheltered and somewhat isolated. But for us, it was life and it was wonderful, and we're really grateful for it.
Amazing. I think another very interesting thing about your life that people do not know, maybe, is that you were a police officer as well. So you studied psychology and programming, and you worked with the South African Police Department for a while. That must be a unique combination. Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Yes, I spent about 12 years working for the South African police, but I also spent some time in other government departments in South Africa. I was
Mhm.
always interested in human behavior from a very young age and always interested in people and different diversity of people, and therefore the psychology studies. And I also had a knack for computers. Once, computers started appearing on the scene in my younger years, I was always interested in it and I did well. And that then I thought I should, upskill myself and become more versatile. And then I applied both these things in my work in the police, and I started focusing on human resources and industrial psychology and public service in South Africa. And I basically utilized both these studies and these backgrounds in computers and psychology, industrial psychology, in these settings. And it was the diversity, being interested in the diversity of people and cultures and politics and ethnicities. And I just keep on doing it. I keep on learning about it, although it's more informal these days, but it's been my lifelong learning to learn more about people and cultures around the world and the diversity and ethnicities. And I find it so interesting and extremely exhilarating to talk to people from around the world because it's been one of my motivators and drivers from a very young age. Yeah, that's how I've used it up to this point.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about now your move to New Zealand. How did that come about? Was it something that you had thought about, or was it something of a surprise? Tell us how the seed of moving to New Zealand got inside of you.
Yes, it actually took quite a lot of time. We took around 2 years to from making the decision to move to New Zealand to actually landing in New Zealand. But before that, we looked at Canada, we looked at
Mhm.
Australia. At the time in the late 1990s, South Africa was undergoing a transition away from the old apartheid years, and
Mhm.
things didn't go as well as we expected. There was an increase in crime and an increase in corruption, and we just started searching for a safer and more stable environment to raise our family, and finally decided on New Zealand. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I wrote several books, and one of them is titled Running from the Rainbow Nation. It is available on Amazon if people
Okay,
want to go
fantastic.
and read. about our journey. And I wrote that book at the time that my oldest daughter was very sick, but just as a way for my children to be able to remember why we came and what we went through. It's not a grammatical masterpiece, but it is just writing down our journey so my children would remember their journey. But in the end, we ended up in New Zealand in 2002, and we've been here ever since. So yes, still living the dream. Very grateful.
Excellent. And what was the name of the book again? I would definitely put the link to that on the
Sure,
podcast.
sure.
People can review that.
I've actually written 3 books, so listeners
Well,
can go and look up my name on Amazon, and they would find all 3 books. But
that's
this
excellent.
one is titled "Running from the Rainbow Nation."
Okay, Rain from
Yeah,
Rainbow Nation. I will definitely look. I
yeah,
encourage everyone watching
yeah,
this to please look this up and also
yeah,
get the other books. Say it will be
yeah,
fascinating. Her journey is indeed quite incredible and amazing.
yeah,
Wonderful. So,
yeah. Very fortunate.
moving to a new country comes with its own set of challenges. What were the initial hurdles that you faced moving to New Zealand?
Um, I get asked this question quite a bit. What was the biggest challenge? I think I I can actually let me say it this way. There there's many challenges for immigrants, but it all culminates in one thing, which is overwhelm, confusion, and fear. That's the
Mm.
emotions that the feelings that most immigrants go through in various
Yeah.
degrees. In 2016, I wrote an article. I wrote a lot of articles, but I wrote an article titled "After Immigration When Depression Comes Knocking." You can go and search for it. I think it's on my LinkedIn articles. Um, and that is about the strain of immigration on the human psyche and why it adds so much pressure on immigrants. But it's because of a whole lot of things which we call life events in psychology that we've got to do all over again at once when we immigrate. And actually, in 1967, 2 psychiatrists, I think it was Thomas Holmes and Richard Rahi, they conducted research into whether stressful life events cause illnesses and disorders, and they published their findings. But they came up with the Holmes and Rahi stress scale. And on this scale, they measure the impact of stressful life events on the human psyche and found that immigration is the highest. So
Wow.
for me, it was no different. I was just an immigrant like many other people still to this day. And we experience these life events that we've got to do and take care of, basically putting all the things, all the bits and pieces of our lives together in a short
Together.
period of time when we immigrate. That is what's stressful. And that is what people experience in terms of overwhelm, confusion, and fear. So it's not just one thing, it is all these things put together and the strain that it causes. For me, and I think for a whole lot of other people, just finding a job from a distance is probably, I'm not saying it's the biggest challenge, but it is one of the bigger things that they've got to overcome if they want to immigrate successfully. Whether you need a job offer to fulfill your eligibility requirements or just need a job to feed your family, most people need a job, they need an income. So that is quite a difficult task. And then I think the second thing is adapting to that new environment, which is, putting all the bits and pieces of your life together. So people can go and have a look and search for that article. It might, just give them a little bit of insight into why it is so difficult. And it's because I found it difficult, but that's the reason why it is so difficult. Yeah.
I
Does
think
it
I think
answer your
everybody
question?
should be.
I hope
No,
so.
100%. I think what you've alluded to and highlighted, these are real topics that we actually think more people should be talking about more. I think in this whole conversation regarding migration, which is again happening everywhere around the world, it's very easy to sort of paint the migrants coming in a certain way, but not much is said about the trauma or the difficulties, the psychological impact it has for us. Anyone
Mm.
trying to uproot himself from his local,
Yeah.
surrounding environment and place himself somewhere else. So I think that would definitely be a very, very useful read for a lot of people, and everybody should. I encourage everyone to should read it. Um, so now coming to the service that you offer, you created the Elite Career Mentor, which is again a really unique tool and service that you were offering to people, migrants who could look for opportunities overseas, and probably give them a structured tool and methods that they can, get the best opportunity that they could. Can you tell us a little bit about this, about the Career Mentor program?
Yes. Sure. Well, I've positioned myself as an international career strategist, so it's a little bit different to just a career coach who, or a resume writer per se, who just use people with local job search, applying online at the resumes and so forth. It's more about a broader strategy and trying to land a job from a distance. But I'm also a migration mentor, so I do a lot of coaching with immigrants who have already immigrated and finding things difficult or just going through the immigration journey. And we end up, they end up finding out that 90% of that struggle is, like you say, psychological. It's a mental game. And when you get that right, the other things sort of fall into place. But in the Elite Career Mentor, I focus on helping international candidates land their dream jobs, mostly from a distance, without applying online. And I'm saying applying online with accent because this is the most ineffective way for immigrants to try and land a job. And I see this every day, all day long. There's people having this difficulty in trying to land their jobs and implementing the strategy of applying online, which is not going to be to any of their benefit. So that's what I do at the Elite Career Mentor, is trying to implement other strategies to help them to land their jobs so that they can become the successful citizens and fulfill the immigration requirements, but also, start their new lives on the other side. That's what I do at Elite Career Mentor.
Amazing. And what's also pretty unique about the way you have created this program is it emphasizes more on attracting jobs than in fact chasing them, which is generally the sort of tools which are readily available, right? So how did
Yeah,
you come up with something that is so distinct from what's available in the market?
yeah. The strategies that I implement with them, there's a reason for them. And the reason is that it's in fact easier to attract job offers than chasing it. It is both easier for locals and international candidates, but most people, most candidates don't know about these other strategies in finding jobs. They just know how to apply online because that's what all of us have been doing for years now. But it just doesn't work, especially not for immigrants. And the many challenges that immigrant job seekers face when they want to land a job, like being eliminated by ATS systems, the visa disclaimers, those things at the bottom of a job ad that says you must have a visa to apply for these jobs, those kind of things. The trust issues from overseas employers, needing to find sponsors, those kind of things culminate in only two obstacles for immigrants. And that is, they've got to be the most visible candidates. And they're invisible because these things keep them invisible. They literally get eliminated from the hiring process very quickly. So we need to implement other strategies to make them more visible. And the second thing is they need to be the most valuable candidates. And that is getting to the front of the queue, being globally competitive. Because as we know, if you want to be an immigrant applying for jobs or pursuing jobs in another country, you're not competing with locals, you're competing with global other candidates. So visibility and being valuable to fix these obstacles, that's the reason why I have refined and developed these other strategies to help them attract job offers. And when they do this correctly, that actually happens. Instead of them trying to apply for jobs and chasing jobs and having high competition, they actually get shoulder taps. And that is what we want to see. And then they're in the best position to be able to negotiate the best deals as well. Makes sense?
Fantastic. I think,
And the other
yeah.
thing is, I believe, like there are always opportunities everywhere in the world, given any economic conditions. Um, the length of the queue to these opportunities may differ. in terms of the economic conditions or whatever other variables there are out there that is outside our control, but there's always a queue. And if you want to be smart as an international candidate, you just have to find yourself at the front of this queue. And being the most visible and being the most valuable candidate will get you to the front of the queue. So you'll always be the first person up for these opportunities. So yeah, that's why I developed this sort of strategic alternative approach and helping people get in front of the ideal employers overseas.
That's amazing. I think these are two very valuable lessons that any
Mhm.
job seeker internationally could really sort of, take very good hold of, is visibility and value. I think these are in today's global competitive job market. In fact, this job market's now constantly changing. There's a lot of insecurity, a lot of unknown there with the advent of AI, with a lot of jobs being replaced. And that's why I want to come to my next question.
Mhm.
The job markets internationally, especially New Zealand, have seen significant shifts recently. What's your take on the employment landscape, Izzy, for especially, let's say, for New Zealand?
I think it's challenging, not just for New Zealand, but everywhere else. I work globally, so I look across markets in Australia, Europe, Canada, USA, and even the Middle East, and how people going from wherever to wherever. So it gives you perspective when you can compare New Zealand to Australia or to Canada or markets in Europe, and you think New Zealand is challenging, you should see other places. It's even more challenging and more competitive. But I think you can either see it as challenging or competitive, or you can see it as exciting and inviting. And if you take a different stance on this, then it sort of inspires you to become better and become adaptable and become flexible and upskill, and not just upskill in terms of your skills, but upskill in terms of how to be able to be that best candidate that will always have those access to those opportunities. And therefore, because it's changing and competitive, candidates need to be more visible and more valuable. People will find that these days you cannot do this with a CV alone anymore. There's so much focus and attention on CVs and resumes. It's always been like that. And now with AI, it's just sort of magnified how to do CVs better. But it's not about a CV anymore. It's a completely misfocus. So employers are actually moving away from asking for CVs or resumes. They are implementing other ways and finding the best candidates. So that is where candidates need to be adaptive and need to find ways and other ways to get in front of those employers. So that's where these strategies come in. But to come back to the job markets, that is what is happening out there. The requirements of how to find a job is changing. And that's what candidates need to be aware of. They can't stagnate in 15 years ago where a CV was the thing. It's not the thing anymore. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to also understand your take on what do you feel with the recent policy changes that have been introduced. There's Immigration New Zealand constantly changes policies regarding offshore workers. Now, recently, some policies have been made from the 10th of March that they have got rid of the median wage. Now, the market rates have come into play from the 10th of March onwards. Do you think the current policies of Immigration New Zealand are they conducive, or are they restrictive to people looking for work overseas, or looking for work in New Zealand from overseas?
I don't think they're good or bad. I think they are right for the moment. I think the recent changes that has been introduced in the last few weeks is good. Overall, I'm
Mhm.
not a licensed immigration advisor, so I do not focus on certain visa conditions and regulations, and I can't because I look across the world. I need to be sort of up to speed with everything that goes on in every country. And if we compare New Zealand's immigration system from what I know about it, because I work with immigrants, with other countries,
Mhm.
we actually have a quite simple, easy,
Yeah.
flexible, friendly system. There are many, much more difficult, hard to navigate, more strict places in the world. So I think New Zealand is fairly open, but we also need those standards there to be able to attract the best. of the best. That is what we want for our country. And I totally
Absolutely.
agree with that. So I don't think it's overly restrictive. I think there are small changes that can be made to be able to make it easier for those people that we do actually want. And I
Mhm.
think we can streamline some of the processes, not necessarily the regulations, but some of the processes to make it easier for people that we actually want. But I think it's fair at the moment, from what I know of it and know about it. And I do think that we also need to see the flip side of it on the government side of things in terms of what is coming our way. If who doesn't want to live in New Zealand? We are getting those waves of people trying to come here and people that are probably not going to be conducive to our country doing as well as we are. So there is a checks and balances there that needs to be there, but I think it's well set at the moment and it's going in the right direction. Attracting business, attracting investment, attracting even the digital nomads. I don't think they're going to take local jobs. They can work for anyone anywhere in the world while living in New Zealand. So I don't think it's going to have that big effect on the local job market.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what people also need to understand is there's a difference between skill shortages and labor shortages. And if you want to look at whether you're eligible to come to New Zealand and you have no idea about these things and you haven't checked your eligibility, then you do not understand actually where you sit in the whole of all these regulations and how they will affect you. These regulations are not put there to keep people away. They're actually put there to protect the people in the country and protect the migrants coming in. That's my take on it. Yeah.
100%. I think that's very correct. Tell us something. Say, for what advice would you have? We get a lot of clients who are in the tech sector and in
Mhm.
hospitality. What advice would you give to someone who is looking for opportunities from offshore into the tech sector and hospitality? What would be your take? What should they do? Just
I think it is the broad advice I would give would apply to anyone coming to New Zealand, actually anyone going anywhere in the world, want to immigrate. And it is sort of the broader framework that I work with in if I help people one-on-one or in my other programs. And it is number one, get your eligibility checked. If I work with someone and they have no eligibility assessment, I would not even offer them anything. It is unethical of me to expect that they are eligible to enter this country or to help them with job search unless I know that they are. And I don't think it is to their benefit as well. So check your eligibility so you can become clear about how it will affect your job search. Very, very important. How it will affect your family, how it will affect your future. Get a good licensed immigration advisor on board and just at least get an eligibility assessment done. And that is not thousands of dollars. That can be a few $100s, but it's absolute clarity and risk management. It's absolutely worth it. Second step is research. From your eligibility assessment it will become clear which jobs you can pursue. It will become clear which employers you can work with because that comes from the visa requirements. And then you'll have to research those jobs, what they require and who those employers are, what they require. When I work one-on-one with people, I do that research for them. I research the jobs, define the job requirements. I find their ideal employers for them, and then find out how those employers get their talent, get their people, because in New Zealand, about 15% of jobs are either advertised online. In other countries across the board, it's about 20%. So we need to really make sure that we take a targeted approach in knowing who these employers are and what they require before. That's the third step. We're going to create a value profile that match what these employers want and what the jobs require. And then that immigrant or that candidate is well presented. If they have a profile that matches the requirements, it's well presented. And then they also are the most valuable candidate. So that profile is not just a CV, it needs to demonstrate their value and it needs to prove their skills, it needs to have validity and credibility, those kind of things. And then, most important of all, we need to get that red Ferrari out of the garage of a value profile and get it in front of these employers. So those are the steps. First is eligibility, research, create a value profile, and then become visible to your employers. So this framework can literally be applied to any sector, tech sector, hospitality, health sector, anywhere in the world. And it works very well, works very, very well.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Z. I think a lot of people would be, reaching out to you and encourage them to reach out to you to actually really explore what kind of services he offers. And she's been amazing. Her track record has been one of the best in this industry, and she's really, I mean, I know she works for different countries, but for New Zealand, since she is based here, so she has a much better understanding of what the market is like in New Zealand and both Australia. So that I can really vouch for. I also want to understand you work with different countries. I think you're very active in New Zealand and Australia and the countries like you mentioned. How do you stay in touch or keep yourself updated with immigration policies? Because these things are just so many changes happening around the world, right, regarding immigration. So how do you keep yourself on top of it?
Yeah, it is true. Immigration is always changing. And the factors that influence immigration are either politics or economics. Those are the big things that it always impact immigration. So if there's any politics or economics happening somewhere, I sort of listen for the changes that's coming in immigration because I know from experience it's going to happen. But I perform research for at least 2 hours a day. It's part of my core role is to keep on top of what's happening out there. And not in immigration, just in immigration, but in job search and the markets as well, trends and what's going on and how things are changing in the job markets in different industries, etc. And because I work worldwide, I need to keep an eye on these things in various countries and places. It's not just for New Zealand. So I follow influential immigration advisors like yourself, around the world, because people like you are really up to speed with what is happening in the immigration space, for instance, in New Zealand. And you're really at the forefront of being in contact with those people who make those changes and who bring those things about. So I like to follow people like yourself and other people who post about it or talk about it or put it out there to their communities. That's one way. Here's a tip for some listeners. Set up Google Alerts on immigration topics and let it come to your inbox. It's one tip or one tool that I use every day. So I don't go searching for it. It literally comes to me. And that's a really good way of getting the things at a certain point in the day that you actually go and sit down and read and become up to date with. And then I subscribe to some of the immigration pages around the world. They have a place where you can subscribe on the actual page, so you can just keep updated with major news and major, things like Stats New Zealand. I get the stats changes that come that they regularly publish, etc. So there's a few ways that I do it. If I was an immigrant today, and I actually did this when I started my immigration journey 24 years ago, we had dial-up internet. And I subscribed to the New Zealand Herald at the time because I had no idea what else to do. And I used to read the New Zealand Herald every day. I waited like 15 minutes for the page to load and then would read about the person who killed his neighbor's duck with a screwdriver on his lawn. And I'm thinking, there's no other interesting news in New Zealand because that was what attracted me. It's because of, this is what made the news. But read, study, ask, listen to opinions, be careful which opinions you listen to, go to trusted sources, make it your job to find out what's going on in your destination country, just like I make it my job to find out what's going on in many countries on the topics that is of interest in my career.
That's interesting, Zee. I also want to ask you, part of your strategy and part of your plan requires giving personalized service to a lot of your clients, and I'm assuming you have multiple clients that you're working with at one time. So
Yeah.
for a lot of us, we find that a challenge. I want to know, as a professional, how do you overcome that? Giving that personalized attention to
Yeah.
multiple clients, all that, and considering you've got such fantastic reviews, how do you manage that? We'd love to learn a little bit from you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Number one, I take on a limited number of clients in a year. The elite one-on-one clients, I only take on 12 in a year, maybe 15 at the most, depending on what the situation is. But I try to not overload myself. But I also have a small team that helps me with many of the things that I do. So it's not just me. There's a small team behind me, and they are based around the world actually, and they help me with some of the work that we need to do in terms of these due diligence searches and reports for clients and putting together resumes or CVs or doing the research into these employers and their job targets, etc. However, in delivering this one-on-one elite career mentor one-on-one program, I do it all myself. I do coach these clients myself. Then I have another program, which is a group coaching program, where candidates can go and they get access to all my content, all the trainings, all the cheat sheets and templates and training videos that I deliver with my one-on-one clients. I record some of these things and I put it in a portal, which is a training portal. They get access to all of that. And they also do get 2 live Zoom calls that I do in that group every month, and they can belong to that as long as they wish. So that's another option for people where I don't have to, leverage or work one-on-one, but I can leverage my time in helping more people. The flip side of that is that they do not get individual attention. So it's about what individual immigrants, select or how their preference is. And if they want to work one-on-one with me, or they want to work in a group program that's slightly more affordable, but they are going to have to do things themselves. But many people do opt for that. So both those services are there. I try to not overload us because I like the one-on-one interaction with people and seeing them succeed. That's my reward. It's process. When someone lands a job, I've just had 2 candidates land the offers, and one already have their visas, and it's like Christmas. It's incredible. I can relate to that feeling when I had, when I achieved that goal and I was still overseas. And 99% of people that I work with land their jobs from a distance. They do not have to travel to the destination country. And if someone tells candidates that, it's nonsense. It doesn't work that way. They don't have to do that. So that's my reward, is helping those people make those breakthroughs. Of course, we cannot guarantee jobs, impossible, but to help them until they land the job, no matter how long it takes, that is what makes me get out of bed every morning. Yeah, it's highly
I think
enjoyable.
it's beautiful. I think
Love that
that's so
work.
true. That you can provide. I think it's very important that we a lot of times I also explain to candidates that we as service providers, for us it's most important that the duty is to provide you with all the necessary tools that make you successful. Nothing is guaranteed, but then again, it's equally important that they utilize all the tools that are available to them. Tell me a little bit more. Who is the kind of person that should take the one-on-one elite service compared to one of the generalized services for a lot of candidates who are watching this right now?
It's 2 things. Usually it is people who just do not have enough time to do things themselves. This is a big job. This is not a walk in the park. Nothing big and special is ever cheap and easy. This is going to be big. So there's quite a bit of work involved. In the Elite One-on-One program, when I start working with someone, just the research, the initial research that we do in terms of defining the job targets, finding the employers, creating their profile, that takes 3 weeks to a month full time for me or a consultant in the business to do that work for one person. That's how intensive and diligent that work is done. So if someone wants to take that on themselves, they first got to learn how to do that. And I guess that will take them a lot of time for me to teach them how to do that and then going to do it themselves. And of course, most people in trying to do that land in the solution ditch because, it's like the gym. You go for 3 weeks and you haven't got a six-pack, you think, why is this not happening? So for most people, they want that work done as quickly as possible. And they don't have the time to sit there for 10, 20 hours a week and trying to get that done and not knowing how to do it. And they would rather pay for someone to do the work. So time or money. For other people, they would rather immerse themselves into learning how it's done and take it on themselves. And that's their own preference. If they want to do that, obviously it's a lot cheaper than hiring someone to do that work for them. The benefit of the one-on-one program is that after 3 weeks or a month, we can actually sit down with the client and put them through the visibility actions or the actual strategies to get them in front of the employers. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the exposure starts happening. That's where the shoulder taps start happening. And that's what they're looking for. So they can get to success quicker. That's basically it. Other people prefer to pay less and take longer to get there, but then they'll have to learn how to do everything themselves and implement it, which is more challenging, I would assume. Yeah. So that's the
Wonderful. So I
difference
think
between the two. Yeah.
wonderful. So I think a lot of the viewers listening to this, they can take a call. They should reach out to, and Zay, how's the best way they can reach out to you? Is it connecting with you directly on your website with their individual situation? Fantastic.
Yes, I actually prefer that. I prefer to have a personal conversation with people first before anything else. It is
Okay.
so difficult for me to establish what the preferences are, what the goals are, where they are in the process, in the immigration process, where they are in the personal situation. You know, there might be a lot of things going on for them before I can recommend something that I can help them with, or a program, whatever program. There's a variety of programs and levels and programs that can help them. But before I can recommend the best one, I need to have a conversation with someone to be able to establish which one will fit their needs best. So I prefer an individual conversation. If they want to connect with me that way, they can go to my website. The front page of my website, elitecareermentor.com. Right at the top, there's a button to go through and book a strategy consultation with me. Otherwise, I invite people to send me a message on LinkedIn. I try to answer or to reply to every single message that I get on LinkedIn. Every single one. It is a big job, but if I were on the other side of that, I would absolutely appreciate it if someone did that with me. And that's the kind of reply or response I want people to experience. So if they ask on LinkedIn or they send me a message, I will try and respond there. And if needed, I would ask them to come on a individual conversation or a strategy consultation with me. And then from the strategy consultation, we normally establish where they are in the process, what needs to be done next, or how can the problem be solved wherever they are. Immigration is a big, big process. So I normally don't take on people with career coaching or international career strategy unless they're eligible to enter the destination country in terms of knowing the eligibility, either having it done themselves and being very clear about it, or having a written comprehensive eligibility assessment from an immigration advisor. And if they don't have that, I will give them, some indication of where to go to get that done. But a conversation is probably the easiest way. So they can reach out on my website, elitecareermentor.com, or they can reach out to me on LinkedIn if they just want to ask a question anytime.
Fantastic. So, see, I wanted to also get an idea of what occupations are you open to receiving candidates from any industry, or are there any specific industries you have preferences for, or any industries you don't want to sort of
Yeah.
really get into?
Um, I usually work with skilled migrants around the world. So you will know the skill levels, right? In New Zealand, and the skill levels are basically the same anywhere in the world. We have the
Yeah.
UNSCR code, which is soon going to be changed to the OXA. But
Mhm.
other countries in the world have a similar, sort of categorization of skills. And I
Mhm.
like to work with skilled migrants. So, in any industry, doesn't matter which industry, from healthcare to public service, tech industry, finance, banking, and insurance, any of those industries. And also, I want to stress for the listeners, you do not need to be on the green list in New Zealand to qualify, from my experience. But you need to know what you qualify for, and that is having a conversation with a good immigration advisor first and establishing eligibility. If you do not have that and you come to me, I'm going to send you back to an immigration advisor. Because if you don't understand it, I cannot help you. Because the
Absolutely.
targeting for job search strategy comes from eligibility. And sometimes the bad news is that you don't qualify. However, it's always good to hear that after having spent $200 or $100 than having spent $20,000 and having moved your
Exactly.
family, getting to the other side of the world, and then realizing you don't qualify. And that happens very, very often. We deal with that kind of situation every single day. I think you would agree that
Absolutely.
that is the most heartbreaking thing to deal with because it is hopelessness. And I do not wish that for anyone. So before you do anything, establish your eligibility. That will tell you where you are, what you're eligible for, and where your skill level is, and if you need to proceed. And then you can do the rest. And although I prefer to work with people and what I say skilled occupations, because obviously that is what our country wants, is skilled occupations, skilled people. I'm not saying that people are not skilled or unskilled or there's no need for them, but it is just the way that the system is set up in trying to attract those people to our country, and the way that I focus on helping those people with international career strategy. And I guess there are other avenues for other people in lower skilled labor situations as well for them. But I would always urge them to get the eligibility check before they do anything. Whether you're skilled or you consider yourself skilled or not, always do that.
I think that's a very important advice, and that's something we also reiterate to a lot of people, that
Mm.
get yourself assessed. It's very important before you make that move. And I think earlier on, Zee also mentioned that it is a big step moving. It's a big psychological step. It's a big financial commitment, moving to another country with your family and not having the complete knowledge of where you're coming in, what are the timelines you can live,
Yeah,
what are the future pathways available to you.
yeah,
Not I think the biggest mistake people do is jump into it without having all these things cleared up. Living in uncertainty is the worst thing that you can put yourself and your family through. So I think it's really important to get that, to connect with the right kind of people in this industry. People like say who are there to help you, there to give you the right kind of advice, to get to give you
yeah.
the right kind of tools to really get the best chances of successfully coming to New
Mm.
Zealand. And coming from success, I want to also ask, tell us a little story, success story, is about you, one of your clients, and how it's impacted you. I would love to, and me, the viewers would love to hear more about that.
Um, Everyone has their own unique stories, because everyone has their own unique lives. But if I think around stories that I'm not saying they're more impactful than other people, but people who have experienced both sides of the coin, just what we've been talking about, having that disappointment of either not qualifying or making a mistake, and then those stories can be turned around. That is probably where the biggest impact is, sort of saving the situation. And that is not just down to me. There's a whole raft of experts in this industry that I recommend people turn to, because immigration is the biggest thing you'll ever do. Don't leave it to chance. You can't afford to make a mistake. One story I can think about is a gentleman who upped his family from a country in Europe and wanted to immigrate to Australia just after the COVID lockdowns and it opened up. And he was encouraged to do it because he is in IT security. It's very high in demand everywhere in the world. So he wanted to move to Australia. And on the advice of someone, took his whole family of, I think there were 7 people, resigned his job. He was the only income earner, sold his house where they lived, and took his whole family to Australia and got there and very quickly landed several jobs. But then also very quickly found out that he can and his family could never stay in Australia because of eligibility requirements like age and those kind of things. And in the process, lost $50,000 just because they had no idea of properly checking the eligibility to be able to stay in Australia. So the job search was no issue, the going to Australia was no issue, but remaining there for them was going to be a really big issue. And there was just no way that they could do that. So they hopped over the ditch and came to New Zealand. And he very quickly found several offers in New Zealand. And he's been here ever since I've actually got residence in New Zealand on the green list. About a few months before he turned the age where it was a cut-off age for him to be in New Zealand. So, and all of that is actually being able to salvage the situation. And that's life changing, I think. that's life changing, because in terms of what they had to face going back, they would have been it would have been disastrous. It would have been completely heartbreaking to see that situation not being able to be solved. So there are many, many stories like that. There are many stories of people applying for jobs for 2 years and
Mhm.
nothing happens, not getting through. And that's where I sort of interact with people when they are not able to find the jobs, because I'm a career strategist. And then coming to an eligibility assessment and then figuring out that they've been doing it all wrong, trying to find the wrong jobs, or that they don't qualify and they either needed to change their strategy and then it suddenly works within a month, or, do something different. And if listeners want to see some of these stories, they can go to my LinkedIn profile under my featured section. I've uploaded some stories here that they can read and maybe relate to, what has happened to some of these people who were very generous and letting me tell these stories there. But it is so rewarding to be able to work with someone who's been trying for 2 years or 18 months and nothing happens. And then suddenly, within a couple of weeks, I have 6 or 7 offers or shoulder taps without applying for jobs. That is a big turnaround. And that's what we've seen in the market. It's very, very possible. And that's extremely rewarding. So um, don't despair. Get expert advice and try a different approach. That is always my advice. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Zee. So, say, looking back at your amazing career and journey, what's the one particular moment that you feel most proud about?
Most proud about is when we realized, um, we came to New Zealand and we started our new lives here, but the blessed life that we have anywhere in the world right now. I have a motto or a mantra. It's not. I'm not here to. It's not about what's next. It's about what's now. And if we focus on living the now, then everything else falls in place magically. And that is what I'm most proud about, is that me and my family, and I've realized that in my career, I do not have to strive and build and stress and effort and struggle to build a business or do these things or do that thing. If I take care of the moment now and my clients what they need right now, somehow magically the rest takes care of itself. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for you or the listeners, but coming to that realization has sort of taken 10 years off my age. I stopped worrying. And
Yeah.
that's really one thing that I'm proud. But I'm also proud about being able to use my experience, use my not just my professional experience, but my life experience, and helping others see what's possible. And there's always someone 10 steps ahead of us, anywhere in anything. We just need to ask. We just need to look for that person who is the expert sometimes, but also just the person who has been there and done that, and ask. And that's what I'm saying. If people want to ask a question on LinkedIn, feel free. There's maybe one thing, and I have done that before. I've been on a 5-minute call or a text or a message with someone on LinkedIn and gave them one tip or one advice, which has been a breakthrough for them. And it's not just about me. If there's anyone else out there who can do that for you, it's life changing. People have done it for me. And I'm proud to be able to use that experience and that knowledge and the understanding and the journey that I have been on to help others do the same. That's the most rewarding thing. But that power of now to serve where you are. There's no next. There's now. Serve right now. It is freeing. It's
So
liberating. Yeah,
I think that's wonderful. I think it's also there's so much spiritual thought also that goes into it because a lot of time we are existing between the past and the future and without really um, paying attention or paying enough attention to what it really matters is
yeah,
exactly the now. So that's such a
yeah,
wonderful way to put it. Say, and tell me about any challenges that you faced in your profession that you remember that you can sort of and how you overcome those that you would like to share with the audience.
yeah. In my profession and in this career, I had to learn a whole lot of new things, which I didn't learn through studying. And I think you would agree to that. You know, as you go through life, you're thinking, how I was never prepared for this through professional studies or official studies.
Yeah.
And that is that is probably the biggest thing that I think some people miss is that you don't learn from formal studies as much as you learn from doing things. So never
Absolutely.
never stop doing things, trying, finding solutions. Um, Challenges will always be there. They will always be there. We are every minute, every moment of our lives on the leading edge of creation. That's the purpose of life. It is expanding creation, right? So the way that we do that is challenges, solving problems, solving challenges. And the way that we solve those challenges and those problems is by trying. Sometimes there's no manual. So I had to overcome a lot of those things and trying and trying and trying and trying again and again and again. And I think, not to blow my own trumpet, but I think that's one of my strengths. Is like I never stop trying. My eldest daughter went through a kidney transplant a couple of years ago, and her mantra is the only way is through. And I think we've adopted that as a family. There's only one way and it's through. There's always many, infinite number of solutions to one problem. And if we keep trying, we will find at least one. And that is what I have done to overcome all the challenges that I faced in my professional career. I had to learn how to do sales. I had to learn how to do marketing. I had to learn how to build relationships. I had to learn how to coach people. I had to learn how the immigration things work in the world so that I can advise my clients how that translates into job search strategies. That wasn't taught to me at university. That came from solving problems and wanting to solve the problems and the challenges and moving forward. So keep doing it, keep trying. It's all I can say. That's how I've coped with challenges.
That's
Yes.
such amazing message to end the conversations. Keep doing it and keep trying. That's wonderful, Zay. And before we wind up, I want to also let you just guide the audience a little bit on what's the best way to get in touch with you online. If you could give them some information on that.
Yeah. They can find me at elitecareermentor.com. There's several buttons there. They can book a call with me, or they can look around and see the offerings and the different programs there, or they can look me up on LinkedIn. If they just search for my name, it's fairly unique, so they should find me on LinkedIn. Or they can go to Amazon.com and search for my name, and they'll find all the books that I've written in terms of immigration and finding jobs as immigrants. There's several books there, and they'll be able to download or purchase those books. They are very inexpensive, and it sort of encompass all the strategies that I talk about in terms of um, international career strategy and immigration. Some of it is personal stories, some of it is actual strategy, and some of it is how I moved from a job into entrepreneurship. So it is an all-round holistic view of my way of, helping people understand those concepts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zee. It's been a real pleasure and a real honor to have you speak with us. I think people tuning in would have taken in a lot of information, and we will share the link to Zee's website and at the LinkedIn post. So please do visit it. What she offers is something truly valuable. I know it because I follow her and I've seen the tools. I have come across people who have used those tools. That's why, and they could vouch for it. That's why I was very keen to have someone like say come and speak to us. These are really valuable tools. She's someone who can really give you a life-changing experience in terms of how you present your profile, not just for New Zealand, but for any country that you looking to apply for a job. So thank you so much. Say any last words from your end before we leave?
Thank you for the opportunity. It was really my pleasure in spending some time with you. I follow you too, and I am really impressed by the way that you also interact and contribute to this community. I noticed that you have been overseas recently with the Prime Minister, and that you probably had a very exciting time and made some really good connections overseas. And I look forward to seeing more of those news and those um, the things that are coming from that visit, and the things that are going to come in the future from these initiatives. I really look forward to seeing those coming through.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you in person pretty soon. Thank you.